In this video, I rank the top 15 wide receivers in NFL history. Like most of my videos, it is sure to cause lots of uproar and arguments, but then again, it'd be boring if everybody agreed on everything all the time. Enjoy. Number 15, Don Hutson. Don Hutson dominated his competition to a greater degree than any wide receiver ever not named Jerry Rice. So why is he only number 15 on this list? Well, because he played largely against vastly inferior competition and athletes in the 1930s and 40s. Even though his opponents were mostly unathletic white dudes who wouldn't come close to making an NFL roster nowadays, Hutson's 8 All-Pro nods show he had legitimate talent, and unlike the players he went against, could have succeeded in any era with modern training. But I just can't ignore his level of competition being so bad compared to the rest of this list. Number 14, Lance Alworth. Bambi was one of the biggest stars of the AFL. He stood just 6 foot 184 pounds, but his game did all the talking. He was a 7-time Pro Bowler and 6-time All-Pro who led the league in catches 3 times, yards 3 times, and touchdowns 3 times. He also helped the Chargers win the AFL championship in 1963. Why is Alworth not more highly thought of nowadays? Well, similar to Hutson, his level of competition in the AFL wasn't quite up to par. The AFL in NFL circles was viewed similarly to how the ABA is in NBA circles, with an asterisk. Unfortunately, Alworth was past his prime by the time he got to Dallas in 1971, but he still managed to win a Super Bowl ring there. There's no doubt Alworth would have done well in any scenario though. What a hard worker. I mean, just look at him. Number 13, Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson wasn't a big talker, but he didn't need to be, as he finished his stellar career with over 14,000 receiving yards. He made 7 Pro Bowls and was named first team All-Pro twice. He led the league in receptions twice and yards twice. He also put up all these ridiculous stats without, let's just say, premier quarterback play. First, he had historic draft bust David Carr throwing to him, and later on, a good but not great quarterback in Matt Schaub. He also didn't rack up as many touchdowns as other wide receivers on this list, which is why he lands here. But from a physical standpoint, he could do it all, and if he had played with an elite quarterback, his numbers would have been far more prolific. Number 12, Larry Fitzgerald. I was never as big on Larry Fitzgerald as many others. To me, he only had a few legitimately great years, 2005, 2007, 2008, and 2011, and he was largely a compiler. He made 11 Pro Bowls, but just 1 first-team All-Pro. Compiler or not, though, 14,032 catches, 17,492 yards, and 121 touchdowns is unbelievably great and easy first-ballot Hall of Fame territory. Plus, he's a media darling, so it's basically guaranteed from. The other thing Fitz has going for him was that he was a legitimately amazing postseason receiver whenever his Cardinals teams got there. But when it comes to wide receivers, I tend to value peak performance a little more than longevity, so Fitz lands at number 12. Number 11, Julio Jones. I've always said if you removed end zones from the field, Julio would be the GOAT wide receiver. After all, he holds the NFL record for most receiving yards per game, and from 2013 to 2018, he averaged a jaw-dropping 104.6 yards per game. Physically, he has everything you want in a receiver. 6'3", 220 pounds with blistering speed and great strength. It's just a wonder why he's never caught more touchdowns. Even if his touchdowns are underwhelming, his catches and yards will earn him a spot in the Hall of Fame after he's done playing. He also had the greatest forgotten catch ever in Super Bowl 51 that should have sealed a ring for Atlanta, but we all know Brady's luck came into play there. He's on the downside of his career now, but he was must-see for many years. Number 10, Michael Irvin. Irvin finished his career with 750 catches, 11,904 yards, and 65 touchdowns. Very good numbers, but they vastly undersell how amazing he actually was. He put up those numbers on mostly run-oriented teams that handed the ball to Emmitt Smith near the goal line. Irvin was an absolute monster, and he got even better in the postseason, playing a huge role in the dynasty of the 1990s that won 3 Super Bowls. Despite not playing in the most stat-friendly situation, his per-game numbers hold up very well, or better than most all-time great wide receivers. Just don't steal his seat for a haircut. Google it. Number 9, Tim Brown. Brown is one of those all-time greats that gets lost to history for several reasons. He started off slow due to injuries, he never won anything, he has a generic name, and he never had that one historically great season. But what Brown did have was incredible consistency despite plenty of mediocre quarterbacks throwing him the ball. The 9-time Pro Bowler had 9 straight 1,000-yard seasons from 1993 to 2001, 8 of those 9 actually being over 1,100 yards. Many old heads wonder what would have happened if you switched Brown with his fellow Bay Area legend Jerry Rice. We'll never know. But what we do know is that this Hall of Famer with 1,094 catches, 14,934 yards, and 100 career touchdowns was one of the best wide receivers ever, period. Number 8, Steve Largent. Steve Largent walked so Cooper Kupp could run. The original daughter dater extraordinaire. The original gritty hard worker who stays late to watch film. Okay, enough white receiver cliches. Largent looked like the husband who gets cheated on in a Bang Bros video, but in reality the guy could fucking get open and catch the ball as well as anybody that's ever played. He's a Hall of Famer, a 7-time Pro Bowler and a 1-time All-Pro. He led the league in receiving yards twice, but the biggest reason he ranks at number 8 is because at the time of his retirement after 1989, he was the all-time leader in every major receiving stat. That has to count for something. Number 7, Antonio Brown. A massive piece of shit and a complete Looney Tune, but anybody who says he's not one of the best wide receivers of all time is lying to themselves. He's made 7 Pro Bowls and 4 first-team All-Pros. He led the NFL in receptions 2 times, receiving yards 2 times, and touchdowns once. His stretch of play from 2013 to 2018 is arguably the best 6-year run any wide receiver has ever had. As I said earlier, I value peak play over longevity, which is why Brown ranks this high. But it's not like longevity doesn't matter either, and Brown's off-field shenanigans have hurt him from ranking even higher. Who knows, maybe he has another few great years left in Tampa, as he's currently 33 years old, but what will happen when Tom Brady isn't there anymore to keep him in check? Either way, taking every wide receiver ever at their best, not many have been better than Mr. Big Chest. Number 6, Marvin Harrison. A super classy guy, a Hall of Famer, 8-time Pro Bowler, and 4-time first-team All-Pro. Finished his career with 1,102 catches, 14,580 yards, and 128 touchdowns. His 8-year run from 1999 to 2006, where he averaged 103 catches, 1,400 yards, and 13 touchdowns per season, is legendary. But there are 2 bugaboos we must talk about with Mr. Harrison. The first being that he benefited mightily from having Peyton Manning throwing him the ball in his prime. It's not far-fetched to think other members on this list could have put up similar production in that situation. And the second is that this guy was a legitimately terrible postseason wide receiver. I normally don't put too much stock into the playoffs for wide receivers, but Harrison had just 883 yards and 2 touchdown catches in 16 playoff games, most of which came in his prime. He was soft, and Peyton's playoff numbers are actually way better when he wasn't throwing Harrison the ball. I hope he doesn't find me for saying this. Number 5, Cris Carter. Overcame a major drug problem early in his career to become one of the greatest wide receivers ever. The interesting thing about Carter is that he didn't have his first 1,000-yard season until he turned 28, but boy did he make up for lost time after that. From ages 29 to 35, he averaged 99 catches, 1,200 yards, and 12 touchdowns per season, including leading the league in catches once and touchdowns 3 times. And while there's no definitive way to ever prove it, he probably has the best hands in NFL history, being able to make catches with consistency that not even the best wide receivers could. He finished his career with 8 Pro Bowls and 2 first-team All-Pro nods, over 1,100 catches, 13,899 yards, and most impressively, 130 touchdown catches, which is still 4th on the all-time list today. Had he gotten his head on straight earlier, he might have been top 2, but being the 5th best wide receiver of all time still isn't bad. Number 4, Calvin Johnson. From a physical standpoint, Megatron is the best wide receiver of all time. There was literally nothing he was incapable of doing. 6'5", 240 pounds with blazing speed, great leaping ability, and the incredible ability to high point the ball in traffic. Teams had to game plan for him in a way very few wide receivers have ever had to be game planned for. In 9 seasons, he made 6 Pro Bowls and 3 first-team All-Pros. He led the league in catches once, yards twice, and touchdowns once. Of course, he can't rank higher than number 4 simply because he didn't play long enough to warrant it. There's no doubt in my mind, had he not retired at age 30, he would have put up the career totals to match those of Moss and Owens. But he made his decision to leave, so it's not fair to put him over guys who had similar peaks in addition to more longevity. Still, his greatness was so apparent whenever he stepped on the field, he ranks this highly despite retiring far too soon. Number 3, Terrell Owens. The Motormouth wide receiver created drama wherever he went, but he also recorded 15,934 career yards, 153 career touchdown catches, made 6 Pro Bowls, and was named first-team All-Pro 5 times. So he was fucking worth the trouble he caused, most of the time. T.O. led the league in touchdowns 3 times, had 9 1,000-yard seasons, and 7 seasons of 13-plus touchdown catches. He could struggle with drops at times, but his production was so prolific in spite of it that it didn't really matter. He was an absolute terror to bring down after the catch due to his combination of size and strength. As an Eagles fan, I'll never forget him putting up 9 catches and 122 yards in the Super Bowl on a broken ankle against the Patriots. He cared about winning, although he wanted to be the reason his team won. I don't hold his attitude against him like some douchebags do, and I'm glad he made the Hall of Fame. My only gripe is that it should have been on the first ballot. Number 2, Randy Moss. Moss has one of the most unique careers in sports history. On one hand, what he actually did was incredible. 15,292 career yards, 156 career receiving touchdowns, led the NFL in touchdown catches 5 times, made the Hall of Fame, 6 Pro Bowls, and was named first-team All-Pro 4 times. He also currently holds the single-season record for touchdown catches. He was so dominant early on that teams changed their entire defensive schemes to stop him. Through 6 seasons, he was truly on pace to not only match Jerry Rice, but possibly surpass him. But Moss is also a case of unfulfilled promise. He wasted 2 prime years toiling away with bad Oakland teams and was basically done being an elite wide receiver at age 32. It's a bit of a hipster/contrarian viewpoint to call him the best wide receiver of all time due to his talent, but the fact is, he's not the best wide receiver of all time. time, even though had he applied himself more, he could have made it a hell of an argument. For now, he'll have to settle for being the second best wide receiver of all time. Not bad. And number 1, Jerry Rice. Was there really any other answer? Not only is Jerry Rice far and away the best wide receiver in NFL history, he's arguably the best player in NFL history. He checks off literally every single box you can think of for a player. He had an amazing peak, he had unmatched longevity, and he got better in the playoffs, especially in the Super Bowl. All of his career records still stand today in a far more pass-happy league, even though he retired in 2004. He has 117 more catches, 5,403 more yards, and 41 more receiving touchdowns than any other player ever. He led the league in receptions twice, yards 6 times, and touchdowns 6 times. The NFL's all-time touchdown leader made 13 Pro Bowls and was named a first-team All-Pro 10 times. Yes, 10. Some morons will say he was merely a product of Montana and Young, but he put up an 1,100-yard season and a 1,200-yard season at ages 39 and 40 in Oakland with Rich Gannon throwing him the ball. In 4 Super Bowl appearances, he averaged 147 yards per game and caught 8 touchdowns. The guy was just different, and he would have dominated in any situation he was put in. Simply put, Jerry Rice is the best, no matter how you slice it.